Hi guys, Anna Weber here, and today we are going to be starting another book in this series. Today we will be reading, it might help if I have the book right side up, Meet Kit. So I'm going to tell you guys how I was introduced to the character of Kit and how I got into reading the Kit books and stuff like that. And today I am reading to you from my porch swing because it's beautiful out, and I thought this would be a great place to start this dramatic reading. So, yeah. Alright, so, for those of you who don't know, the way that I kind of got into Kit and was first introduced to the character of Kit was my sister Melody. She has the Kit American Girl doll, so she had some of the first few books. So that was kind of how I was introduced to the character of Kit, was in the form of the doll. And then later on I heard the dramatic readings of Kit and just fell in love with the character. And so, yeah. Kit is always going to be one of my favorite American Girl characters. There's just something about her. I don't know, maybe it's that she's a writer, maybe it's that she always has these great, exciting adventures, or maybe it's her imagination. I don't know. I really think it is her imagination, because that's kind of what I like about Kit and Molly equally, is their imagination. So anyway, let's get into reading the book. Alright. 1934. Meet Kit, an American Girl. The American Girls Collection. Book 1. Oh, and unlike the other books, this is the second release book cover. Well, for the other books it was, but Kit was actually one of the newer characters, so this is the first release for her. Anyway. By Valerie Tripp. Illustrations by Walter Rain and Vignettes Susan McCallie. For my Aunt Maxine Hanson Martin, with all my love. Chapter 1. Good news. Click, clack, clackety. Kit Kittredge smiled as she typed. She loved the sound of the typewriter keys, as much as they struck the paper with the ping of the bell when she got to the end of the line. She loved the inky smell of the typewriter ribbon and the way the black letters looked as they marched across the page, telling a story that she wanted it told, the way she wanted it told. It was a hot afternoon in August. Kit and her best friend Ruthie were in Kit's room writing a newspaper for Kit's dad. Kit was not a very good typist. She usually only used her 2 pointer fingers, and she made a lot of mistakes, which she had to X out. But Dad never minded. Every night when he came home from work, he gave Kit the real newspaper so that she could read the headlines and baseball scores and the funnies. He was always very pleased when Kit gave him one of her newspapers in return. Kit finished the paragraph she was typing. Read me what we have so far, said Ruthie. And Kit cleared her throat and read. Ruthie Snippens and Kit Kittredge are reading a lot of books this summer. Ruthie has read the Blue, Yellow, and Red Fairy books by Andrew Lang. She is now reading the Lilac Fairy book. I am interested in princes and princesses, so I like fairy tales, said Ruthie. Kit Kittredge is reading The Adventures of Robin Hood and His Merry Men. I like the way Robin Hood tricks the bad guy and the Sheriff of Nottingham, said Kit. And the way he robs rich people and gives their money to poor people. I think it would be great to live in Sherwood Forest. That's good, said Ruthie when Kit finished reading. I like it. Me too, said Kit. What should we write about now? Write about Charlie and the cookies, said Ruthie. Charlie was Kit's brother, who was 16. Kit thought a moment, then she types, Congratulations to Charlie Kittredge. He set a world record today. He ate a whole plate of ginger snaps that were supposed to be for Mother's Garden Club. Charlie is going to college in a few weeks. He should try out for the eating team. Ruthie looked over Kit's shoulder and giggled as she read what Kit had typed. Now what? She asked. Kit picked up a pencil and put it behind her ear so that she would look like a newspaper reporter. Well, she said, we could write about how hot it is. Ruthie nodded, quickly at first, then slower and slower. Finally, she let her chin fall to her chest, closed her eyes, and pretended to snore. You're right, Kit said. Weather's boring! There aren't any people in it. This is supposed to be a newspaper, not a snoozepaper. You could write about how your mother is redecorating your room, Ruthie said. I think it's as pretty as a princess's room, don't you? Mm-hmm, answered Kit with a crooked smile. It's okay. It's just a little too pink for me. I'd rather sleep in a treehouse like Robin Hood. Ruthie shook her head. You're crazy, she said. Yup, said Kit cheerfully. She knew Ruthie was right, of course. Her room was pretty. Mother had redecorated it for her earlier that summer as a surprise, and as with everything Mother did, it was lovely. Kit's room was painted pale pink with white trim. There was a canopy bed as high and white and fluffy as a cloud, and a dressing table with a lacy skirt around it. The desk was white and springly legged. It looked too delicate to hold the big black typewriter that crouched on it. Mother had asked Kit to keep the typewriter in the closet, please, and take it out only when she used it. But Kit always forgot to put the typewriter away. Besides, she used it a lot. The typewriter ended up being on the desk all the time, even though it looked out of place in the frilly room. Quinn squirmed on the poofy stool that had replaced her old swivel chair. She believed in telling the truth straight out, but so far she hadn't told Mother that she felt as out of place in the frilly room as the typewriter looked. Mother was so pleased with all the lacy pinkness and so sure the room was a girl's dream, which it probably is, Kit admitted to herself, just not mine. The redecorating story's no good because Dad knows all about it, she said to Ruthie. It's not news, Kit sighed. I wish something would happen around here. Some dramatic change. Then we'd have a headline that would really grab Dad's attention, like in the real newspapers, said Ruthie. Exactly, said Kit. I don't know, said Ruthie. When my parents read the headlines these days, they get worried. The news is always about the depression, and it's always bad. I don't think we want our newspaper to be like that. No, Kit said. We want good news. She knew there hadn't been much good news in the real newspapers for a long time. The whole country was in a mess because of the Depression. Dad had explained to her. About 3 years ago, people got nervous about their money and stopped buying as many things as they used to. So some stores had to close down. The people who worked in the stores lost their jobs. Then the factories that made the things the stores used to sell had to close down. So the factory workers lost their jobs too. Pretty soon the people who'd lost their jobs had no money to pay their doctors or their house painters or music teachers. So those people got poorer too. Kit was glad that her dad still had his job at his car dealership. She and Ruthie knew kids at school whose fathers had lost their jobs. They'd seen those fathers selling apples on the street corners, trying to earn a few cents every day. Some kids had disappeared from school because their families didn't have enough money to pay the rent anymore, and they had to move. Dad said the Depression was like a terrible slippery hole. Once you fall in, it was almost impossible to get out. Kit knew the Depression was getting worse all the time because the newspaper headlines said so almost every night. But inside Kit's house, no dramatic changes where a headline seemed to be happening. The girls were about to give up on finding news, good or bad, when Charlie popped his head in the door. Hey girls, he said. Mother's Garden Club's here. You better get downstairs if you want anything to eat. I saw Mrs. Clover already diving headfirst into the nut dish. Oh, thanks for telling us, Charlie, said Kit. Oh boy, said Ruthie. Maybe there'll be some cake for us. Maybe there'll be some news for us, said Kit. She grabbed her notepad and took the pencil from behind her ear. Come on! Kit and Ruthie thundered down the stairs. They slowed their steps in the hallway so that they wouldn't sound, as Mother always said, like a herd of stampeding elephants. Mother liked things to be just so when the Garden Club ladies came. She brought out her best crystal, china, silver, and linens and arranged her most beautiful plants on the terrace where the ladies met. Kit could hear the ladies' voices and the clink of their iced tea glasses out on the terrace. Above all the other voices, Kit heard Mrs. Wolf complimenting Mother. Margaret, Mrs. Wolf was saying, your sponge cake is perfection. Mine is just that, a sponge. Mrs. Wolf hooted at her own joke before she went on. Please, give me your recipe. I'd be glad to, said Mother, just as Kit and Ruthie stepped onto the terrace. Mother looked as cool and slender as a mint leaf in her pale green dress. Kit wanted to fling herself at Mother and hug her, but she held herself back. Her fingers had typewriter ink on them. It would never do to leave ink stains on Mother's perfect dress. mother smiled when she saw the girls. Then she turned to her guests and said, "Ladies, you remember Ruth Ann Smithens and my daughter Kit, don't you?" "Yes, of course," said the ladies. "Hello, girls." "Hello," said Kit and Ruthie politely. "Do help yourself to some refreshments, girls," said Mother. "We will," said Kit and Ruthie, smiling broadly. The girls filled their plates and retreated to a corner behind a potted plant to enjoy their feast and observe the ladies. At first, the ladies discussed gardening club's business, such as how to get rid of bugs, slugs, and other garden pests. It was pretty boring, although the girls did get giggly when Mrs. Wilmore said she was beside herself because she had spots on her phyllox. Then the talk moved on to who was going to weed the flower bed at the hospital, which the garden club ladies took turns doing. "I believe it's my turn," said Mrs. Howard. "But I'm afraid I won't be able to weed this month. In fact," she hesitated and blinked her big round eyes, "I'm afraid I won't be able to be a part of the garden club at all anymore." Kit and Ruthie looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. This sounded interesting. Why would Mrs. Howard be quitting the garden club? Kit leaned forward so that she could hear better. "There may be a story in this for our newspaper," she thought. All the ladies murmured that they were sorry, and Mother said, "Oh, Louise, that's too bad." "Well," said Mrs. Howard, "I'm moving to Chicago. My husband is already there, and so my son Sterling and I are going to join him. He's pursuing a business opportunity." "Ah," said all the ladies brightly. They all knew what that meant. Kit did too. It meant that Mr. Howard had gone to Chicago to look for a job. Everyone knew that Mr. Howard had not had a job for 2 years, ever since the company he worked for here in Cincinnati had gone out of business. "Where will you live in Chicago?" a lady asked. "I'm not sure yet," said Mrs. Howard, blinking again. "Mr. Howard hasn't settled anywhere. We'll be hither and thither, and young for a while." The ladies smiled, but Kit saw little lines of concern on their faces. The whole thing sounded pretty fishy to Kit. If the Howards have no place to live in Chicago, why are they leaving their house in Cincinnati? She wondered, then suddenly it dawned on her. The Howards couldn't stay in their house. They didn't have enough money anymore, and Mr. Howard didn't have a job or a place for them to live in Chicago either. That was the truth. Kit was sure of it. She was pretty sure that all the ladies knew it too, but no one would say it out loud. There was an awkward silence. Then Mother spoke up and made everything better. "I have a marvelous idea, Lois," she said to Mrs. Howard. We'd love it if you and dear Sterling would stay in our guest room until your husband is settled in Chicago and sends for you. Sterling is about Kit's age. I'm sure they'll get along beautifully." Ruthie nudged Kit, but Kit held her finger to her lips to signal Ruthie not to say anything. The ladies turned around, Mrs. Howard waiting anxiously for her answer to Mother's invitation. "Well," said Mrs. Howard slowly, "if you're sure it isn't too much trouble, Sterling and I would love to stay. Thank you, Margaret." "That's all settled then," said Mother calmly. All the ladies brightened up as if a cloud had blown away. Kit started scribbling notes on her notepad, and Ruthie whispered to her, "Who's this Sterling boy?" Kit shrugged. "He's Mr. Howard's son, I guess," she said. "I haven't met him." "You will," said Ruthie. "He's going to be living in your house." "Looks like it," said Kit. She liked the idea. Boys were always up to something. Sterling was sure to be a good source for stories for her newspaper for Dad. And it would be nice to have a boy around, especially after Charlie left for college. She and Sterling could play catch together. They could talk about Cincinnati Reds baseball team, which Kit loved, and Ruthie, quite frankly, didn't care much about. And Sterling could join in when she and Ruthie acted out stories from the books they read. Kit grinned, and Ruthie grinned at Ruthie. "When we play Robin Hood, Sterling can be the sheriff of Nottingham," she said. "Boys like to be the bad guy." Ruthie had a big bite of cake in her mouth. She swallowed and grinned back. "Well," she said, "you never know. Sterling might rather be Prince Charming and perform good deeds." "He's already done one good deed," said Kit. "What?" said Ruthie. "Come on," said Kit. "I'll show you." The two girls slipped back inside the house and ran up the stairs to Kit's room. Kit stood in front of her typewriter. "Sterling's given us our headline," she said to Ruthie. "Look." Kit typed in capital letters, "The Howards are coming!"